Hi and welcome. We're now going to look at health and stress, and we're going to do this in two parts. This is going to be on health. So in this part, we're going to look at coping with stress, health and disease, and the effect on our lifestyle and health. So we're going to start with the psychological moderators of stress, and we're going to start with the work of Richard Lazarus, who looked at what role does our perception of a particular situation that we have and how we handle it. Now, he suggested that we engage in two forms of appraisal, primary and secondary appraisal. So let's look at those quickly. Primary appraisal, it's the evaluating of potential stressors as a positive or negative or neutral stimulus. The secondary appraisal, the next level if you will, is evaluating how to cope with a stressful event by using available resources. Now this could be physically available resources, emotionally, or even behaviorally available resources. Now what we'll do is we're going to consider several things that can and do to affect or to moderate the effects of stress, also known as stress management. All right, so some of the following are elements that we may be born with. For example, hardiness is something that we have or don't have. But more importantly, it is something difficult to learn or gain over time. It is a little like personality. Perhaps some of it is genetic and founded in there, and some of it can be learned and or associated with as time goes by. So we'll touch base on this, psychological hardiness. Now this psychological hardiness also helps people resist stress. Characteristics of people who are hardy, they include their high commitment, so they stick with things when they get committed to them. They're high in challenge, so change rather than stability is normal in life. So high in challenge just means you're looking forward to those things. And they're high in what is known as perceived control. They think they are in control, therefore they are, and that puts them in a hardy state. Hardy people are high in internal locus of control. They don't need the reward to motivate them to do something. That's the reward that comes from outside to here. They work from the inside and are motivated from there, and their hardiness is based on that ability to resist stress because they choose to face it. Now, another way to manage stress, and this is one we've all been familiar with, and that is the use of humor. Laughter is the best medicine. Feelings of happiness may have beneficial effects on the immune system. Humor can moderate effects of stress. Laughter stimulates the output of endorphins. Humor may create positive cognitive shifts, even if it's what is known sort of as a break. Even if you are thinking of the stress, have some humor. It offers a break, and sometimes that break is enough to start helping to reduce the level of stress. We can also touch on what is known as predictability and control. The ability to predict a stressor apparently moderates its impact. So for example, one stressor for many students is tests or assignments. So knowing when they are happening helps us to protect, and we can take measures to manage that stress. Study. Control and even the illusion of control can moderate the impact. This area is known as locus of control, and there are two perspectives. There's an internal and an external locus of control. Let's look at those individually. Internal, people who wish to exercise control over their situations. External, people who do not wish to exercise control over their situation. Now we can look at a number of other elements that help us with stress, and one of those things is something, again, we probably are very familiar with, and that is the social support. Now social support also seems to act as a buffer against the effect of stress. Sources of social support can be emotional in nature. Now there are some terms that we can we can explore in this area, and we'll touch on one, which is instrumental aid. Now, the instrumental aid that can be things that are offered in support. For example, seeing someone who's homeless, you might offer them a meal. Then information, so this sort of instrumental aid is helpful in giving some people relief from some of the stressors. Now, appraisal is giving feedback as how somebody is doing. So that can be really helpful for people to get some feedback on how they're doing, can help with some of their stress. And socializing, doing things with someone, you going for a walk or going shopping. So these are all elements can help manage stress. Now, can we look at the psychology and chronic health problems and look at what might be at play there? And we'll start with the biopsychosocial approach. This recognizes that there is no easy answer to why some people are immune and others are not. Now, biological factors such as a pathogen, inoculations, injuries, age, gender, even a family history of disease can be the most obvious cause of a disease. Now, if we're going to look at biology, we also touch on genetics and how it can play a role. Genes only create the predisposition toward a health problem. Many health problems are affected by psychological factors such as our attitudes towards things, our emotions, and our behaviors. Stopping smoking, eating right, exercising, and controlling alcohol use would prevent a number of types of deaths. Genetic predispositions interact with the environment and express themselves. So sometimes what happens is that having a genetic predisposition for depression or a psychological disorder, for example, may not materialize until later in our teens and early in our adulthood when the levels of stress that we might experience start to increase. That might be what triggers that genetic predisposition to arrive at that time. We can also touch on coronary heart disease. Coronary heart disease remains the second leading cause of death in Canada. Both men and women are at similar risk for coronary heart disease, with annual death rates reported at about 30%. So the risks, we can look at your family history, some of the physiological conditions that you might be experiencing, patterns of consumption, type A behavior, hostility and holding in feelings of anger, job strain. These all can play a very important part. Chronic fatigue and chronic emotional strain, sudden stressors, a very physically inactive life can all contribute to coronary heart disease. If we move to cancer, according to Stats Canada 2009, cancer is the leading cause of death in Canada. Lung cancer is the most common and most preventable for both men and women, 30% of all cancer deaths. Cancer is characterized by the development of abnormal or mutant cells that may take root anywhere in the body. If not controlled early, the cancerous cells may metastasize, establish colonies elsewhere in the body. Risk factors here: people can inherit a disposition towards cancer. And there are, of course, behaviors that can contribute. For example, smoking, drinking alcohol, eating animal fats, and sunbathing. Prolonged psychological conditions such as depression or stress can also work its way that way. So cultural differences include higher death rates in the Netherlands, Denmark, England, and the United States and Canada, where the intake of animal fats is higher. Lower death rates in places like Thailand, the Philippines, and Japan, where they're not eating as much of the animal fats. Stress and cancer. Researchers have uncovered possible links between stress and cancer. Stress reduces levels of cortisol and impairs the ability of the immune system to destroy cancer cells. But this is still being researched. Once cancer has developed, stress can influence its course. So this relationship between health and stress is ambiguous, and then it's in all parts of our lives and can affect all of us or some of us. We'll touch base on HIV and AIDS and other sexually transmitted infections here as well. Most people are devastated when they are diagnosed with AIDS. They are sentenced to an early death and face social stigma. To cope, education and information must be given to patients. Self-help groups, group therapy, medications can also help. Psychoneuroimmunology is a field of study in which psychologists, biologists, and medical researchers combine their expertise to learn how psychological factors affect the immune system. Now, research has shown that stress can impair the functioning of the immune system. Specifically, stress is associated with an increase in illness behavior, such as reporting physical symptoms, seeking medical care. Stress has the power to suppress the immune system long after the stressful experience is over. Now, young adults between 20 and 24 are the most highest risk for STIs, sexually transmitted infections. Most common are chlamydia and gonorrhea. And in Canada, 76,275 cases of HIV were reported between 1985, at the very beginning of the HIV pandemic, if you will, and 2012. 30% of these cases were unaware they had an infection. HIV is transmitted via blood, semen, or vaginal secretions during sexual intercourse. Regular aerobic exercises reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease, increase muscle strength, moderate the effects of stress, and make bones denser and stronger and helps them maintain a desirable weight. Now, you can get great benefits from a little as 2.5 hours per week of aerobic exercising. That could be running, walking, swimming, gardening, vacuuming, any number of things that raise your heart rate for 2.5 hours a week will make an improvement in the overall experience of your health, and therefore also being able to manage better your stress. Okay, now that's part one. It's a quick overview, but we're going to look in part two at some of the more positive elements about health and what we can do with our lifestyle. All right? Good luck, everybody, and we'll see you in part two. Bye now.